Thanks for coming in, man.
Thanks for having me. This is so cool.
How are you?
Good. I'm not cool enough to be in this. I'm still getting the environment in here. This is like, I just said it's like the real world. I only watched the first 2 seasons.
Did you? Were you into
better
it?
houses then. No, it was, I got cable when I was like 20. My parents were like, we got cable. So I was like, oh my God, MTV. So I was like sort of like a depraved kid who would watch MTV for the first time, and that was on.
So what was your cultural, what were your cultural references without cable? Like, how did you connect?
It's really interesting. I don't know how, I don't know. I was probably just in a pod. No, it was weird. I went to college, an amazing college, but a cool college. I went to Brown University in Rhode Island. And before that, I truly credit all my friends with my culture because, listen, my parents took me to all these amazing things. I saw, amazing shows, amazing music and all that stuff in Boston. Boston's a great cultural place, but I really hadn't been into movies that weren't in cineplexes. I hadn't really listened to music that wasn't on the radio. And so yes, Brown is an amazing education to get, but my education at Brown was, I said to like 7 or 8 friends, give me a new album and a new movie every week. And I did for the entire 4 years. Wow. So I remember the first album I got was a Nick Drake album, and I was like, who is this? This is like explosive. It was so awesome.
First time Pink Moon comes on.
That's exactly right. Yeah. You start weeping, and you're like, why am I crying so hard? It's so true. Yeah, so that's it. I really changed completely. I don't think I would have been an actor if it wasn't for that school.
And just seeing that there were different kinds of art, because when you're watching just the cineplexes, it's not really reachable, a lot of it.
Yeah, exactly, and it's entertainment, and there's art for sure, but it was just, like you said, it was the impact of knowing how many different avenues, you know what I mean? I'm now such an art nerd going to art museums and looking at art. I was never a visual artist kind of guy, I never sort of got it, if I'm honest, and then after college, I was insatiable. I wanted to see every piece of art and go to all these museums, and so.
When you didn't get it, did you think that the people who talked about its importance were self-important?
No, I was the kid who was like, I think I'm pretty stupid. I don't really get this Jackson Pollock guy. And then I finally got to experience at MoMA, they have like a permanent collection on the 4th or 5th floor, and I think they have his first one. Yeah. And you see it and you go, oh my God.
It's pretty great.
Yeah, so now people think I'm pretentious because I'm like, have you seen Jackson Pollock's first painting?
Well, like, what were not horror films, because I think your film isn't a horror film, but what were the scary films, what were the intense films that you first connected with as a kid?
Well, the truth is, I didn't really watch a lot of scary films ever. I mean, as a kid, I sort of made this very conscious decision that scary movies were bad movies, which is so ignorant and stupid that I only realize now after directing this movie. But I did watch all the classics, so I was a huge fan of, as much as it scared me, like Jaws, Alien, all the Hitchcock stuff I was into, Rosemary's Baby. I remember movies that seemed like they were about more than just scaring you. Mm-hmm. I was into those. And then for some reason, I just told myself as a kid, scary movies I won't be into, which was so silly because now that now that I caught up on all these new modern horror movies like Get Out or The Witch or The Babadook, you realize that some of the best filmmaking is happening in genre. And I openly say that I'm new to arrival to the party, but I love it. I love being in this party.
Did you think this was going to be a genre film when you first read it? Because it doesn't seem like a genre film after the fact.
Right. No, exactly. Yeah. No, it was definitely written. The first script was written by Beck and Woods, and the producers gave me the script, and I had just had my second daughter 3 weeks before reading this, so I couldn't have been a better audience member for a movie about a family that relies on each other and can't make sound or they die. I was like, that's what I want to know about. You know what I mean? And because I was in that brand new parenting days of totally being terrified, totally hoping that I could keep my daughter safe and alive, and was I a good enough human to be a good enough dad, and all those things. So when I asked to rewrite it and direct it, it was because I had this whole new take on making it a much more specific metaphor or allegory for parenthood.
But also for communication.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Which is, I think, kind of crazy because I didn't really intend this, and then you hear people watching it and having the nicest things to say about it, but also this generation that's completely this generation. I'm there too, and I'm ancient. But but like being in your phone and being on Instagram and being, everything we do is so audio-visual that when we shot in the forest, we shot a scene in the forest, which is just the family walking on sand. And you realize that when everybody goes quiet, if you took a poll of people and said, what are 10 sounds that the forest makes, you'd probably get through 2. You'd be like, trees, birds, I'm out. And then you really get to be there with your crew, and it's dead silent, and you start to really appreciate this world that you've been completely neglecting.
The idea of sound as a thing to be afraid of.
Yes.
Is interesting.
Very interesting, yeah.
Are you a fearful guy to begin with, pre-kids?
I'm not really fearful in like spooky ways. Like, I mean, I scare easily probably, but no, I'm more of a, if you scare me, I'll figure a way to get it out, or get out of it. You know, I'm more of that, kind of like the character. I would do whatever it takes to figure a way out, and then probably end up dying, because I definitely would make noise. I couldn't not make noise.
Was the father, was he mad at the daughter? I know I loved you, I always loved you, but trauma is real. I got a lot of trauma out of this film when I was watching it. Was he ever mad at her?
Yes.
He was?
Yeah. So in my rewrite, I made that really big. Because I love the idea of the truth in how messy we can be as people. You know what I mean? That this ideal of your perfect dad or your perfect parent always loving you is something that you hope happens. And I was lucky enough to have that in my parents. But with the trauma that they go through, blame is inevitably a byproduct of something horrible happening. It's almost a human condition that you have to blame someone so that you feel better about yourself.
Right.
And certainly that misunderstanding and the miscommunication is the father to the daughter.
And so blame kind of weighs on that family.
And changes their dynamic completely.
The monster.
Yeah.
And one of the most fun things about creating anything is being a part of the creation of a monster.
Oh my God. So cool.
Geek with me for a second. What was that like?
I will geek with you forever, because the truth is I don't think anybody thought, hey, the guy from The Office is the one who should be directing horror movies and creating creatures.
And a scary face, all these ear canals. It's a lot of ear canals.
Well, it was really funny. The truth is, I remember on The Office, Greg Daniels, who created the show, one day said to me, he said, it's not your job to play these lines funny. It's your job to play these lines, and if people laugh, that's up to them. And if people cry at the stuff you're saying to Pam, that's up to them too, but it's not up to you. And I thought, seems like a small bit of advice, but it was huge, and I've taken it through my whole career. And to be honest, without that little piece of wisdom, I probably wouldn't have ever directed this movie. Because when I went into it, I didn't go into it directing a horror movie. You know what I mean? I went into it thinking, I'll just tell a story about a family that really needs each other. And if I can, like Greg said, if I can get you to fall in love with these characters, then whether or not you're scared or you're sad for them is up to you. And that was my whole goal going into it. And so, you know, the idea of family was kind of the whole thing, and the horror stuff came second. So in the creation of the creature, I did the same exact thing. I thought, if I try to create a creature that's never been done before, I'm going to miss the target. But if I create a creature that under these rules that I've written and figured it out, I gotta know where he's from. I gotta know why he's so highly evolved. Why does he hunt by sound? All these different things that I came up with in my own head, and then pitched to the ILM guys. I remember my dad saying when we were kids, one of the best bits of advice, he said, you know, one of the most confident things you can say as a person is, I don't know. So I went to the guys at ILM and I said, first of all, I can't believe you're doing this. And second of all, I don't know. And I said, I have a lot of ideas and I have drawings, and I even got down on the ground and crawled like them and stuff. And I said, but please do this with me. Let's be a dance partner. And they were. They really fell in love with the movie from the beginning, but then this process, I think they felt like they were creating it with me. And I think a lot of directors say, like, this is what I want it to look like. And because that they designed it with me, you know, they were with me till the very, very end. I think our budget and our time ran out, and they were still working for us. Oh, yeah.
Did you cut out other storylines? Because we don't know any of the backstory of who these people, these creatures are, how they got there. Is that stuff that's been shot or just in your head? No,
it was just in my head, and I actually made the very conscious decision of not putting it in the script, because I had this feeling of, I remember I wrote this movie, Promised Land, and when we were doing the marketing for it, I went in and I met this guy who was the head of marketing, Jack, and he was the nicest guy. And I just said, can you tell me what's the biggest misconception about marketing? And he said that people are stupid. All these people who are making movies feel like their audiences are dumb, and audiences are really smart, and they really want to be challenged. And this was before, you know, Game of Thrones, where there's 648 characters an episode and people are keeping track like that. And you realize how right he is. And so I thought, writing this, it's another sort of nugget that I've always taken with me. And I just said, what if I don't give them the information? If they need it, I can always put it in, but let's have it be that they don't quite get it and they're picking up little pieces here and there. I didn't want them to be confused. But I thought, if they don't really know what's going on, the family doesn't know what's going on. So then you kind of bond to the family more.
It's the family, there's a lot of spirituality and religion kind of floating around this. Is the family religious before this stuff happens, or is this just how they cope?
It's a really good question. My take on it was, they were religious before, and there's to me, one of the things I love talking about or exploring is the idea of faith and where do you lose your faith and what is big enough. You know, I remember in that movie Signs that M. Night Shyamalan did, the father giving up on his faith because of a loss.
Yeah.
And this family, I love at the dinner scene when they're praying, who's really the one doing the praying? Is it the mother saying, we're never going to stop, we got to pretend? And that's how I always took it, that the mother would not let life change. She wanted people to keep thriving. And I love, that was one of my favorite dichotomies about the movie, is that the father survives and the mother thrives.
Education is a part of it. Shakespeare's a part of it.
He gets it. This guy gets it.
It's all there in the film. Did you come from a pretty religious town historically? Were you a spiritual family?
Yeah, I grew up Catholic for sure. I was an altar boy till I was 18.
Did you go to Poland with a priest?
No, I didn't go to Poland with a priest. Wow, you got some deep moles in here. You guys do some good research. I took my dad to Poland for the first time when he retired. And my surprise to him was I found the town where our name started, which is, if anybody wants to do something nice for their family members, do the Ancestry.com deal of like going deep dive and figuring out where you're from. It's moving.
Did your dad cry?
Well, this is the greatest part is my dad is an amazing human being, open, always allowed us to be who we wanted to be, discover everything how we wanted to discover it, and a hugely emotional person. And I brought him to this town, and we were going around all the different places, and we saw literally the area, not the actual house because they don't exist anymore, but that area where he's from. And there were no waterworks. Not that I was like sadistically like cry, but I thought that it would be a very moving experience. And he was just so thankful and grateful, and we were having a great day. And then at the very end of it, this priest who only spoke Polish, we had a translator, because he was a priest and because we grew up very Catholic and they're still very spiritual. And he just said, would you give me a blessing? And this small priest went to give my dad a blessing. And when he was giving the blessing, my dad let it all out. And it was without a doubt one of the most beautiful moments of my life to witness that and have that huge, big thing happening, which is like, you're at the place where you're from with your dad and my kids are the future of it's just so intense.
Did you well up as well?
Oh my God, I'm welling up now. I'm trying to move on to the next question, for God's sake.
I don't have another question. This is just a conversation. Because I think if you're going to tell stories like this well, as a guy who's watched a lot of them, I used to be an usher at a theater, so I've seen so many.
Them all.
I've seen a lot of them. And if they don't all have to be about you, but they have to be real to you.
Yeah.
They got to come from places and family.
Absolutely.
And so your family may not, it is your partner in this film, your wife, but it's got to be deeper than that.
No, what you're hitting on, I've never told the story about my dad in Poland, but what you're hitting on is exactly the point of why I bonded to it. Because the truth is, I was actually just at South by Southwest, which was insane.
It's such a great festival.
Oh my God, it was amazing. I don't think I can go to another one because it was so good. I was like, that's it. Maybe I'll just retire. But I remember a friend of mine was there and he said, man, I never pegged you as a guy who would direct horror. And I said, yeah, I can't even watch horror. I'm so scared of it. And he went, oh, well, that's why you made a good movie.
Yeah.
I said, what are you talking about? He's like, well, because you didn't make it to be a scary movie. You made it for you. And I now realize that was a really astute comment of him because it's true. I just made a movie about a family that happens to be scary and all these other things. But I think if I went in there knowing what I was doing and was like, I'm a horror genius, let's do this, I would have screwed it up.
Yeah, and you also didn't go for laughs, which the modern comedy goes for laughs.
Right.
There's a lot of modern horror. There's still places to lighten the mood, and you didn't give us any of that.
Well, but because there's power to that, right? I remember watching Get Out and laughing my ass off, and then when it turns, it's such a big, deep turn. You know, that social commentary it's a big hook when it hits. So
what did you learn about yourself then?
Watching Get Out?
Making this film.
I would learned a lot about myself watching Get Out. No, making this film, I think the thing I learned most is accessing that on camera with me, and Emily said it too. Emily said this is the scariest role she's ever done. And I said, why? And she said, because all the other ones are pretend. Yeah. And she said, this is real.
You have kids?
Yeah, exactly. And I said, well, we don't have creatures running around, obviously. And she said, no, but that idea of what if are the things you don't want to let your brain go to. And of course, your brain late at night or early in the morning wants to immediately start heading for the what ifs. And so those are your deepest fears.
And so you still have those fears then, I imagine.
Absolutely, yeah.
How do you manage them?
Well, you have to manage them by being positive, I think. I think you can't look for the worst in things or you're going to just be arrested completely and not be able to leave the couch.
What'd you learn from directing other stuff for this one? Like Hideous Men or...
I mean, I learned a lot. Hideous Men was the craziest experience because I wasn't even supposed to direct it. I adapted the book, And I was actually sitting with Rainn Wilson while we were shooting The Office one day at lunch, and he said, "Why don't you direct it?" And I said, "I can't direct it." And he said, "Why not?" And I said, "Well, because, I just." And he said, "Yeah, you don't have a reason, just do it." And I thought, damn it, I'm gonna do it. And I went out and I directed the movie, and I had the most unbelievable DP, this guy, John Bailey, and he, at the end of the film, said, "That went really well." And I said, "Oh, thanks." And he said, "It shouldn't have." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "You have no idea how lucky your experience was. You got really lucky." It was a small movie, but he literally walked me through the landmine of the minefield of things that could have gone wrong. And in doing that, I literally learned how to direct the movie at the end of it with him by looking at it and saying, this could have gone horribly wrong. And when you do it again, and he said, and you should do it again, but when you do it again, make sure you look out for those things, because I don't want you to step on one next time.
Right.
So when I did the hollers, I was looking out for those things. And then, of course, I don't know, because I'm a glutton for punishment, I decided to do one that was much bigger with things that I hadn't done before. And again, I attribute that all to my parents, who just gave us the confidence to give it a real shot. You can be wrong and you can fail, but just give it a real shot. And so I've never done, visual effects, or the budget was like triple what we did the hollers for. And it was just pretty amazing to do this bigger film and succeed at it, because I was surrounded by people who were personally, in my opinion, that they were connected to it. They didn't just sign up to do, all the crew members, they didn't just sign up because they liked the script. They signed up because there was something deeper in there that they really wanted to explore with us.
Are you strategic about your choices? Like, are you looking at, especially because The Office was so big, you don't want to be just the guy, although that's a good guy to be.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that why you do all this other stuff?
It's so funny. I've been asked that a bunch, and I always say, and it's great because I love talking about it, is I know that at the end of my career, most likely I'll still be known as Jim from The Office most, and that's the best. That's an honor. I mean, it's literally the thing that got me started. I wouldn't have any other opportunities without it.
You could even do it again, right? I think you were saying you're open to it again.
Sure.
Yeah.
If people wanted to do it, yeah. I've never gotten the call. I don't know what that means, but I haven't gotten the call yet. But no, it wasn't to move away from Jim at all. To be really honest, the truth is, and it sounds like a little indie movie in itself, I named my production company Sunday Night because somebody told me, and it's true, when you're trying to be an actor, the only thing they don't allow you to do is act. Because you got to wait tables, and you got to be an assistant, and you got to do all this stuff. So all my friends that were trying to be writers and directors and actors, we would meet on Sunday nights because it was the only time we actually talked about music and albums and plays and movies and all that stuff. And so I truly, when I left The Office, I remembered all those conversations we had, and it was like, if we ever get the shot, this is what we'd do, and we'd make this really cool thing. And I thought, well, you do have a shot, and you do have the opportunity, so go do that cool thing. Don't sit on a couch and wait for them to call you about another show that's kind of like The Office. Like, try it. Just go do something as bold as all those guys that you loved and were inspired by would do if they had the same opportunity. So I did it.
What are you reading?
What am I reading right now? Not much, because I'm doing so much.
Yeah, that's right.
But, I'm diving into a book. My wife is the best book recommendation source that I have. And I just started a book called The Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan, which is awesome.
What are you listening to?
Again, I haven't listened to a lot of new stuff. I just got into, I'm always like 2 years, when you have kids, everything slows down. So I just got into Leon Bridges. People are like, that was 2 years ago, guy. And I'm like, I love it. I'm totally the guy. I just turned into like a dad who's like, you ever heard of Leon Bridges? And my friends were like,
Yeah, I played Coachella a couple years ago.
Yeah, he's kind of like out now. And you're like, oh, great.
What was your conversation with David Foster Wallace like? You had one with him or more than one?
I had one on the phone with him.
What was that like?
One of the more inspiring. That to me felt borderline spiritual or like talking to a guru or something. It's like he knew more than we did. It was like he could see the other side. There was something about him that felt mystical, and he was so gentle, and I don't know why I was so surprised by that. He was so, maybe because he's big and he's so gregarious as a writer and bold as a writer. He was so soft-spoken, so kind. And he said, I'll never forget, he said, I don't really want to talk about the script. I don't really want to know what you're doing with the script. And I said, okay, great. And we had this great conversation. And then by the end of the conversation, he was like, all right, oh God, I don't want to. All right, just tell me a little bit about the script. Like, just tell me a little bit about how did you do it? How did you do it? And he said, I write things that are supposed to sit on shelves. You're supposed to read them and go on a shelf. And I'm okay with that. That's what I want. Mm-hmm. And so this new life, the fact that you're bringing it to a new medium is confusing, and I don't think I'll ever see it. That's what he said to me. He said, I just want to let you know, I don't think I'll ever see it. And I said, that's totally fine.
There's a surrender in that, though.
Yes.
Letting your art go.
Exactly. Which I think is really difficult to do, especially in Hollywood, where it's, people are always checking what the Rotten Tomatoes score is, or like, is the movie still doing well? And it is really nice. I remember, the advice that you get is just keep trying to do something new. Always think about what you're going to do next, rather than worrying about how people are seeing the thing you just did. It's a hard thing to accomplish.
It is, but you said at 100 for a while on Rotten Tomatoes. That's pretty good.
Yeah, we're still there. Anyway.
But by the time this goes up, who knows?
Exactly. Come on, man. Positive. Be positive.
100 is amazing.
Yeah.
Do you still have your faith? Do you still have like a strong connection to something else?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel very spiritual, and I think that I'm more open to the specificity of how to practice that. Nice. But I think that I believe 100% and feel sort of a presence of something much bigger all the time.
The specificity, do you mean you're open to, there's a few ways you can honor this, you just don't know where that is yet?
I don't specifically practice Catholicism in and of it. I still do. I still go to church, and I still...
You do?
Sometimes. That's what I mean, is like I'll still go to a church, I'll still check in with the church. Weirdly, I love going to different places. Like Emily was shooting Mary Poppins for a while in London, and I remember popping into these old churches and just kind of sitting there for yourself. It's weird. Faith to me became something that was much more... Faith's always personal, but I guess when you get older, you're allowed to practice it however you want, rather than in Sunday, everybody load up the car and we're going to church. You know what I mean? It's a different thing, which is really great. But when the office was over, I have no idea why, but Emily said, we can go anywhere you want to go. Where do you want to go? I said, I want to go to Bhutan and go to the Buddhist temple. Still don't know why I decided that. Truly, I have no idea why that popped into my head, but we went for 2 weeks and just hiked to Buddhist temples. It was awesome.
I wonder if on a subconscious level it's because the Kingdom of Bhutan always releases a happiness index. And maybe deep down you're like, what are they doing over there?
Yeah, man, you know your stuff. The other thing that blew my mind in Bhutan was every morning our guide would, sit down and pray, and every time we went to the temples, he'd pray. And I said, are you a religious guy? And he's like, nah, not really. And I said, what are you talking about? Like, you do it every time. He said, yeah, but the whole country does. When you're Buddhist, everybody, prays. And I said, so, well, what do you pray for if you're not really that religious? He said, no, I'm religious. And I said, well, what do you pray for? Do you pray for, that your kids are healthy? Do you pray for, you hope you experience wealth or anything like that? And he went, oh, God, no one does. And I said, what do you mean no one does? And he said, no, if you're a Buddhist, you don't pray for anything.
Yeah.
And I'd never known that. And I said, sorry, what are you talking about? Because certainly as a Catholic, you say, I pray for this person who's sick, or I hope this person, is okay. And he said, no. You may want those things in your heart, but what you pray for is just love to all living things. And I thought, oh my God, that's amazing. And I remember that blew my mind. And that's what I mean, is when you hear things like that, you can't, for me, I couldn't go back to believing that there's only one way to practice. To me, Catholicism is great if it works for you, and then, working on exploring it all by yourself is fun.
For sure. Congrats on the film, man.
Thank you very much. That was a deep conversation.
Well, we're trying,
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That was awesome.
Thank you, man. Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.